Another tradition which they present is an often quoted tradition. It is called Sa'ad Isqaf, in reference to a man who went to the Prophet with his face bleeding and said that he had a complaint to make. The Holy Prophet told him to speak. He said he was walking down the street of Medina and saw a woman coming towards him who was very beautiful and who had tied her scarf behind her head and her chest was visible. As she passed, he turned his head to look at her and did not see what was in front of him. Something was sticking out of the wall and it struck his face and injured him. The verse was then revealed, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Say to the believing men to cast down their glance. Another reason they give is that it says in the traditions, is there anything which has not committed an illicit act? For the illicit act of the eyes is to look? The answer is that this is referring to looking with lust, not just looking. Like the traditions which say, looking is like an arrow of Satan. And of course, it refers to looking with lust. There is another tradition which I have read in the books on traditions of the Sunnis. It says the Holy Prophet was on a journey, probably the farewell pilgrimage. Ibn Abbas, a young boy then, was behind him. He continued to look at the women who passed back and forth in the ihram. The Holy Prophet realized that he was doing this, and he turned the boy's face away. Ibn Abbas then began to look from that direction. The Holy Prophet again turned the boy's face away. According to the Shiite sources, the tradition differs. It says that he was a very handsome young boy, and the Holy Prophet was riding probably on a camel. A woman from the Khasamiya tribe came to ask the Holy Prophet a question. She asked, and the Holy Prophet answered. Then the Holy Prophet realized that her eyes were fixed upon Fazl ibn Abbas, and Fazl ibn Abbas was staring at her. The tradition states that the Holy Prophet turned Fazl's face away, saying, "A young woman and a young man, I am afraid Satan will enter." They say that because of this, it is clear that it is forbidden to look like this. There is no doubt about it. This is love making and it is forbidden. Sheikh al-Ansari says that from this tradition, it is clear that it was obligatory for women to cover themselves, and it was not forbidden in general for men to look. Otherwise, the Holy Prophet would not have looked, but he was looking at her as he was answering her questions and saw that her eyes were fixed on Fadl ibn Abbas and his on hers. Ayatollah Hakim narrates another tradition.
A man by the name of Ali ibn Salah said to Imam al-Rida, peace be upon him, I have a problem. I look at beautiful women and it makes me happy to do so, but I have no bad intentions. The Imam said, there is no problem as God is aware of your intentions and you have no ill intentions but fear and illicit act. Fifth lesson. We have said that there are two issues involved here. First, what is obligatory upon women, and what is permissible for men. Those points which are clear are that it is obligatory upon women to cover themselves, except for their face and hands. There is neither compulsory nor in the Holy Quran, nor in the traditions can we find reason to believe that it is obligatory upon women to cover their face and hands. But as to whether it is permitted for men to look, it is clear and definite that if the look is a lustful one, that is, a look with intention of lust, there is no doubt that this is forbidden. If a look is not a lustful one, but the surrounding conditions and situation are such that a fear exists that one may be led to deviate, that too is forbidden. These two are both forbidden, not only towards women to whom men are not mahram, but to women they are mahram with as well, other than their wife. It is even forbidden for a man to look in this way at another man. Thus, there are only these two questions. Is it obligatory upon a woman to cover her face and hands? And secondly, is it permissible or not for a man to look without lust or fear of deviation? From the viewpoint of traditions, from the point of view of the traditions and the external aspects of the verse, it is more or less certain that it is not necessary for women to cover the face and hands, and it is not forbidden for men to look at a woman's face or hands if his look is not one of lust or fear of deviation. The traditions are numerous, and we have only referred to a few, and a few more will be mentioned. One is a tradition from Imam al-Rida, peace be upon him, who is asked, is it permissible for a man to look at the hair of his wife's sister? He answered, no, it is not permissible, unless she be a woman who is past childbearing age. A wife's sister is just like any other woman that you are not related to according to the divine law, and you can only look at her and her hair if she is beyond childbearing age. Thus, whenever the Imams are asked if it is permissible to look at a woman's hair, etc., they are never asked if it is permissible to look at a woman's face, when the look is not one of lust or fear of deviation. There is another tradition from Imam al-Rida, peace be upon him, about a young boy. Must a 7-year-old boy be encouraged to recite the ritual prayer? He said, it is not obligatory, but to encourage is a good thing. It is not necessary that a woman hide her hair from him until he reaches puberty. We see that again, it is covering the hair which is referred to, and not covering the face. Concerning what their right hands own. Again, concerning, quote-unquote, what their right hands own, if a female slave is mahram to a man, is a male slave mahram to his female owner or not? I am using the term mahram here erroneously with a purpose because this is an interpretation that others have. There is a difference when we say mahram, meaning, for instance, they are not permitted to marry. It is permitted for him to look at her hair, but he is not mahram in the usual sense, such as the father-in-law and his son's wife. Some have interpreted it this way. When a question is asked about this, the answer given is that there is no problem if a male slave look at his female owner's hair. Again, hair is mentioned, not the face. There is a discussion concerning Khawaja and whether or not he is a male slave or a woman. The ruling was that he was like a woman and there was no problem if he looked at a woman's hair. A person asked Imam al-Rida if it was necessary to cover before a Khawaja, and the Imam said it was not. They used to enter my father's house, and women did not cover their hair before them. As to, quote-unquote, the women of the book, of course, they do not need to be dhimma. There is no problem with looking at the hair of a Jewish woman, or a Christian, or a Zoroastrian woman, or a woman who is none of these. The Holy Prophet said, "It is not forbidden to look at the hands and hair of dhimma women." Wherever you look, you see that the issue which is an exception is referred to or questioned, and the face and hands are not questioned. Whereas, if it had been forbidden to look at the face and hands of a woman, they would have been referred to in the exceptions. As to the dhimma woman, some of the ulama believe that we must look and see what the situation was at the time of the Holy Prophet. What extent of the body was not covered? Clearly, the dhimma women did not cover their hair or their hands to a certain point. There was no problem then in looking at them. I have mentioned that in every exception, it is permitted to look without lust except under one condition. That is, it is permissible to look at a woman in lust when one wants to see a woman to decide whether or not to marry her as a serious suitor for marriage. Of course, it is clear that a man cannot spend years looking at women in this way to determine whether or not he wants to get married. There are other conditions as well. How much education should she have? Where does she come from? Etc. After all of other conditions are met, and the only one remaining is to see if one wants to marry her, it is this situation that the exception refers to. If the purpose is only lust, it is clearly not with the intention of marrying. These then were some of the traditions, but there are many more from both Sunni and Shiite sources. The traditions say it refers to Muslim women and not the dhimma, but not with lust or with a look which holds the fear of deviating within. It is permissible to look at her in what she customarily wears outside of her home. Ayatollah Burujerdi says that one must suffice to look only at that which was common in those days. Perhaps customs have changed today, and even more areas of their body are uncovered. There is another point to mention following this. There is an edict based on a tradition which some ulama find difficult to accept. It is concerned with a tradition where the Imam said that there is no problem to look at the hair of a Bedouin woman, a woman from suburb of Kufa or Ilj. It is a non-Arab Bedouin woman. Why? Because it is their custom to dress in their particular style and they refuse to cover their heads. So it is not forbidden to look at them, but of course not with lust. Some of the ulama have issued edicts, just as the tradition states, but the late Ayatollah Muhammad Kazim does not issue one, because he says what is perhaps meant is that in places where these kinds of women are, it is not obligatory for men to curtail their comings and goings. There is no problem if their eyes fall on these women's hair. There is no problem if the women are told to cover themselves and they do not listen. Therefore, he felt it was an exceptional situation not one that needed a religious edict. Another religious jurisprudence says the same thing holds for urban women. If they are told they should cover themselves and they do not, there is no problem if men look at their hair. Hearing the voice of a non-mahram woman. Another issue is that of hearing the voice of a non-mahram woman. Is this forbidden or not? This is clear from the edicts that it is not forbidden as long as it is not for lust or in fear of deviating. There is no problem between a blind person who is hearing another. However, there is caution. Where it does not concern a man, he should avoid it. But it is forbidden for a woman to make her voice very pleasant and attractive, so as to cause confusion in a man, whereby a man who has a sickness in his heart hears her voice and gets attracted to it through lust. This is among the things which are very clear. It is permissible to hear the voice of a non-mahram woman as long as her voice is normal and not one to cause lust or arouse the fear of deviating. The verse of the Holy Quran is clear. It does not say women should not speak. No, it says they should not change the tone of their voice. Women continuously went to the Holy Prophet and to the Imams and asked the questions they had. This is clear. Shaking hands. Another issue is shaking hands. Of course, all of these issues arise only when there is no lust or fear of deviation present. Otherwise, they are clearly not permitted. Again, the traditions and religious edicts confirm one another in this matter. The Imam was asked if it is permitted to shake hands with a non-related woman. He said, no, unless the hands be covered or the woman be mahram. One must not shake the hands with a woman who is not mahram, unless her hand is covered, and even then, pressure should not be applied. There are issues of religious ethics. Here, there are two more points which should be mentioned. The first is that the issues mentioned up to this point were all referred to within the context of the verses and the traditions. Perhaps no further questions would occur to a person up to this point. But these are some of the issues which have occurred to me. Since this is a matter of an edict, everyone must note that I have mentioned my own point of view and referred to these proofs because of their necessity. But the issue is one which must be followed according to the divine law. The second point is that edicts exist which are comparable to the ones mentioned, that include the religious edicts of the great ulama. But these are the edicts of the minority, not the majority. For instance, Sheikh Tusi gave such an edict, as well as Sheikh Hidayat and Sheikh Ansari. All three are among the most learned Shiite scholars. The others mention these reasons, like Ayatollah Hakim in Mustamsak. But when it comes to issuing a religious edict, they hold back. The actions of Muslims to this point have been opposed to these views, so the religious jurisprudence moves beyond the issue. Muslim custom. This itself is an issue, that the customs and habits of Muslims oppose something which is clear from the verses of Quran and the traditions. The customs of the Muslims are not something which can be easily put aside. There is a need for an analysis as to what it is. If we assume that Muslims have acquired a custom from the beginning of Islam, whereby it is discovered to be from the customs of the Holy Prophet and the Imams, it should be preserved. However, a custom of the people is not proof in itself, except when it is discovered to be among the customs of the Holy Prophet. Then it becomes proof and must be observed. For instance, take the beard. Some people say that the real proof for it is that men from the time of the Holy Prophet and later all had beards. Thus, we rely upon this. Now note what they answer. If someone had said that it is forbidden to grow a beard, we would have said that people in the past, according to custom, have a beard, and this existed from the time of the Holy Prophet. Thus, it was not forbidden to have a beard. If it had been forbidden, it could not have become the custom. But the question then arises whether growing a beard is obligatory or recommended. We assume the possibility that it is a part of custom which is at least recommended or unspecified. Custom only dictates when there is a lack of respect involved. Therefore, it is either obligatory or recommended. A thought has occurred to me here which is a historical social point, and most often the reason why the religious authorities become fixed here is because they do not attend to the social issue. The modest dress did not exist among the pre-Islamic Arabs. Islam brought the covering of the head, neck, and chest, etc., and the forbidding of looking with lust. But a part of that which Islam brought existed in non-Arab areas. It was a very strong influence in Iran in particular. Among the Jews, and people were influenced by their way of thinking. Islam did not make it obligatory to uncover the face. It said it is obligatory to cover the hair, not to display the face. Clearly, those nations which came to accept Islam were following their own customs because Islamic precepts did not say it was obligatory to display the face, except in the haram, nor did they say it was forbidden to cover the face. It gave a choice. It left it up to the various nations to practice their own customs of the modest dress if they so desired. History shows that non-Arabs felt it was obligatory to cover the face. Thus, this custom of covering the face, as we find it now, is not a custom of the Holy Prophet and the Imams. Another point, which is very sensitive and should also be considered, relates to caution. Every religious jurisprudent speaks this way out of caution. They all know that these two things exist, one in a woman and one in a man. That which exists within a woman is the desire to show herself off. It is a part of her nature. That which exists within man is an inclination towards looking, not just looking, but flirting and receiving pleasure from it. Both of these exist. Will Durand says that there is nothing in the world more firm and more persevering than a man's desire to look at a woman. It exists no matter how much it is restrained, and it is referred to in the traditions. It is because of this that a religious jurisprudent does not find the courage, in spite of the fact that all of these reasons and proofs exist, to issue a religious edict. They say caution should not be put aside. The caution relates to human nature itself. This brings up another issue. Some people follow a philosophy, and that philosophy is that in those areas which are ruled by customs, whatever one does not say to the people is better. It is better not to say it than to say it. I may have mentioned that I once received a letter in praise of the book I wrote called Stories of Good People. The ritual prayer leader in Khuzestan read the book. He said that he looked up all the stories. Although not one idea was changed, and they had been presented in a very readable, pleasant style, he had two criticisms. The first criticism related to a story about the Blessed Fatima and Ali, peace be upon them. Their work had been divided so that Imam Ali did the work outside of the house, and she the work within the house, a division which the Holy Prophet had made at the very beginning of their marriage. When Imam Ali alayhi salam was home, he helped her within the house, and when he was not at home, she did the work outside the house as well. One day she was covered from head to toe in soot from having started the fire, and because there was no flowing water in Medina, it had to be carried from the wells, often at some distance away. The pressure applied by the straps of her water bag remained on her body because of all the water she had carried to her house. This man said that even though the story was true and was part of the traditions, I should not have mentioned it because it could be misused. I do not deny the general principle that if telling the truth will cause the people to deviate, it should not be said, because the reason for telling the truth in the first place is to guide the people, not to turn others away from it. Of course, the Holy Quran tells us, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, those who conceal the clear signs that we have sent down and the guidance after we have shown them clearly in the book, on them shall be God's curse and the curse of those entitled to curse. Chapter 2, verse 159. The tone of this verse is very strong. There are very few verses in the Holy Quran where such a strong and angry tone is found. At the same time, I believe the purpose to be that people should not conceal the truth because of their own interests, but to conceal the truth because of the truth itself under very limited, temporary, and definite conditions, so that it is not misused and does not fall under this verse. In other words, it is forbidden to lie, but it is not always obligatory to speak the truth. That is, there are occasions when one must remain silent.